Today, we are digging into one of life's great puzzles, desire. You know, why do we want the things we want? And maybe more importantly, why does it cause so much trouble in our lives?
Let's just jump right in. We all search for this deep, meaningful connection, right? But so often, our most important relationships, the ones we cherish the most, are also the ones filled with the most frustration and conflict. It's a huge paradox. If love is supposed to be this amazing, central part of being human, why is it so darn hard?
Well, to get to the bottom of this, we can't just look at the world around us today. The real answers are buried deep in our evolutionary past, a past that shaped our minds just as much as it shaped our bodies. The biologist Helena Cronin put it perfectly. We are walking archives of ancestral wisdom.
And the person who gave us the key to unlock that archive, to read that ancient wisdom, was none other than Charles Darwin, more than a century ago.
See, Darwin was stumped by certain things he saw in nature, things that, from a survival point of view, made absolutely no sense. The classic example is the peacock's tail. It's gorgeous, yeah, but it's also heavy, cumbersome, and basically a giant shimmering, "Hey predators, come eat me" sign. It makes getting away from danger much, much harder. So the question is, if this thing is so bad for survival, why in the world does it exist?
And his answer was, well, revolutionary. He called it sexual selection. The big idea here is that some traits don't evolve to help an animal live longer, they evolve to help it find a mate. If a trait makes you more attractive and helps you reproduce, it gets passed on to the next generation, even if it makes you a little more likely to get eaten. That peacock's tail isn't about a long life. It's about making more little peacocks.
And Darwin realized that this whole process works through two different, let's call them engines. First, you've got mate competition. Think of two big stags locking antlers, fighting it out. That's one sex competing with each other for access to the other. And then the second engine is mate choice. This is all about preference. It's the peahen who gets to be choosy, picking the male with the biggest, most impressive tail. So it's competition and choice.
Okay, so how does all this competition and this choice actually play out for us, for humans? Well, these forces have literally built the blueprints for the mating strategies we all use today, most of the time without even thinking about it.
And look, this isn't just some wild theory. The evidence for this is incredible. It's backed by one of the biggest studies ever done on the topic. They surveyed over 10,000 people in 37 different cultures all over the world. And what they found was that certain patterns of desire showed up again and again and again, which leads to the big question, why?
Here's a really good way to think about it. It's a lot like our preferences for food. We didn't evolve a specific craving for pizza or ice cream, but we absolutely evolved a deep-seated desire for sugar, salt, and fat, because for our ancestors, those things were incredibly rare and packed with life-saving calories. Well, it's the exact same logic with mates. We evolved to desire partners who had qualities that helped our ancestors solve crucial reproductive problems.
And this is where you can really see how those different ancestral problems created different strategies that are still with us. Just look at the data. In every single one of those 37 cultures, women, on average, put a higher value on a partner's financial prospects and their ambition. Why? Because those are solid clues about their ability to provide resources. Meanwhile, men, on average, consistently prioritized youth and physical attractiveness. Why? Because those were reliable cues for health and fertility in our ancestral past. These aren't just cultural quirks, they're echoes of our deep history.
Now, this all feeds into this idea of mate value. We are all, whether we admit it or not, constantly sizing up our own desirability and the desirability of everyone else out there. And this quote, which is maybe a little blunt, really gets at a common dilemma. Our strategies are shaped by our own perceived value, and we usually end up looking for someone in our same league.
So, you've got men and women with these different evolved strategies, this different calculus for what they're looking for. What do you think happens when those strategies crash into each other? You get conflict. And the key thing here is that this conflict isn't necessarily a personal failing or a sign that something is wrong with your relationship. It's a predictable, expected outcome. Evolutionary psychologists have a name for it: strategic interference.
And probably the biggest, most common source of this interference, the thing that causes so much friction in modern dating, comes down to this one simple fact. On average, men evolved a greater desire for short-term sexual variety than women did. This difference in our underlying psychology is so often the source of misunderstandings, arguments, and that classic dreaded "so what are we?" conversation.
So this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, and maybe the biggest challenge of all. What happens when you take this ancient, evolved psychology and drop it into the middle of our completely bizarre modern world?
Because let's be honest, the world of our ancestors is long gone, but the psychology it built is still here. We're basically running ancient software on brand new hardware. Our brains, with these Stone Age desires, are trying to navigate the world of Tinder and Instagram and huge anonymous cities. This ancient brain is the only one we've got to work with.
Okay, and this right here is probably the most important thing to take away from all of this. It's something called the naturalistic fallacy. It's the trap of thinking that just because something is natural, that means it ought to be that way, that it's good or right. But that's a huge mistake. Understanding these evolved tendencies is science. It's a description of where we came from. It is not a moral prescription for how we should behave. In fact, it's the opposite. Understanding the unconscious poles of our past is the first step to having the power to make conscious, better choices in the future.
So, to quickly sum it all up, what have we learned? 1. Mating isn't random, it's strategic. 2. Conflict between partners is often predictable, not just a personal failing. 3. We're all walking around with ancient minds trying to make sense of a modern world. And 4, and this is the most important one, this knowledge doesn't give us an excuse, it gives us a tool. It empowers choice.
At the end of the day, understanding our evolutionary psychology doesn't give us a simple roadmap for love. It's not that easy. But what it does do is give us a new lens. It shines a light on the hidden forces that shape our deepest desires. It shows us the ancient script that we've all been handed at birth. And so the only real question left is, knowing that the script exists, how will you choose to write your own story?